China's space station, a global collaboration, the rise of Tiangong as a symbol of international unity in orbit, a new epoch in space diplomacy. High above the Earth, orbiting at an altitude of approximately 400 kilometers, a gleaming marvel of Chinese engineering represents more than national pride. It symbolizes a bold pivot toward international cooperation in the stars. Tiangong, meaning Heavenly Palace, is China's space station and a centerpiece in the nation's ambitious space program. What started as a primarily domestic endeavor has, in recent years, evolved into a platform for global scientific collaboration, drawing participation from nations far beyond China's traditional geopolitical sphere. As the United States-led International Space Station, ISS, nears the end of its operational life, China's Tiangong station is emerging as a promising successor. A celestial lab welcoming not just Chinese astronauts, but also scientists, engineers, and even future astronauts from Europe, Asia, Africa, and South America. This evolution from isolation to inclusion in orbit marks a monumental shift, not only in space policy, but also in China's role as a spacefaring nation. The journey to Tiangong, a 2-decade mission. The story of China's space station began long before the first module reached orbit. The Chinese space program, led by the China Manned Space Agency, CMSA, has methodically advanced from launching its first taikonaut Yang Liwei in 2003 aboard Shenzhou 5 to constructing and assembling the core modules of Tiangong from 2021 to 2022. Tiangong consists of 3 primary modules. Tianhe, Harmony of the Heavens. The core module, launched in April 2021, serves as the command and control hub, housing life support systems and quarters for the crew. Wentian, Quest for the Heavens. A laboratory module launched in July 2022, it enhances the station's scientific capability. Mengtian, Dreaming of the Heavens. Another lab module launched in October 2022, rounding out the station's T-shaped configuration. Together, these modules weigh over 66 tons and can support up to 6 astronauts for extended missions. The modular design allows for expansions, including docking ports for visiting spacecraft and possible future modules developed in collaboration with other nations. From national project to international platform. Initially, China's space ambitions faced skepticism and exclusion. The United States Congress passed legislation in 2011, the Wolf Amendment, that effectively banned NASA from engaging with China due to security concerns. Consequently, China was barred from participation in the ISS project. However, rather than deter Chinese ambitions, this exclusion galvanized a parallel, independent human spaceflight program. By 2023, the CMSA had launched multiple missions to Tiangong, and by 2024, foreign payloads began appearing on board. Most notably, in 2025, the space station welcomed its first non-Chinese astronauts for a long-duration science mission, a historic milestone that underscored the station's transformation into a global science hub. Countries such as Pakistan, Egypt, Venezuela, and even European nations like France and Italy have signed memoranda of understanding with CMSA. These agreements range from launching scientific experiments and CubeSats to the ambitious inclusion of astronauts from these countries onboard future Tiangong missions. Experiments beyond borders. What the world is learning aboard Tiangong. At its core, Tiangong is a science laboratory. From microgravity physics and materials science to biological studies and Earth observation, the range of experiments conducted on board reflects the diversity of its growing international user base. Recent highlights include Pakistan's Atmospheric Study Satellite. In 2024, Pakistan's Institute of Space Technology launched a microsatellite to study atmospheric changes over South Asia, coordinated with Tiangong's real-time data collection systems. CMSA Protein Crystallization Experiment. A joint project between the European Space Agency and CMSA aims to study protein folding under zero-gravity conditions to better understand neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's. Egyptian Agricultural Studies in Space. Egypt, a participant through the China-Arab States Cooperation Forum, is investigating seed mutation in microgravity to improve food security back on Earth. These collaborations, often sponsored by the UN Office for Outer Space Affairs, UNOOSA, demonstrate the inclusive spirit now embodied by Tiangong. UNOOSA and CMSA co-launched the Access to Space for All initiative, which provides developing nations with technical support and launch opportunities, something no other spacefaring nation had offered at this scale. Diplomacy in orbit. building trust through science. China's expansion of Tiangong into an international asset is not purely about science. It is also about diplomacy. In the same way the ISS once brought together former Cold War rivals, Tiangong is positioning China as a leader in soft power diplomacy through space. In 2024, CMSA announced a 10-year international partnership program that includes plans for cooperative astronaut training, shared use of the station's robotic arm for maintenance tasks, and coordinated Earth observation projects addressing climate change. One upcoming mission in 2026 will include astronauts from China, Kenya, and Hungary, a symbolic triangle linking Asia, Africa, and Europe in peaceful collaboration. This growing network of partnerships is redefining alliances in the space domain. With the ISS likely to be decommissioned by the end of the decade, Tiangong is increasingly viewed as a stable alternative for nations that wish to continue orbital science without building their own stations. Training the next generation, Chinese-European astronaut exchange. One of the more profound symbols of China's inclusive shift was the 2024 astronaut training exchange with the European Space Agency. Several ESA astronauts, including those from France, Germany, and Italy, spent months training in China, learning Mandarin, donning Chinese EVA suits, and becoming proficient in the Tiangong systems. ESA astronaut Samantha Cristoforetti noted during a press conference, "Learning to work aboard Tiangong has been not only technically rewarding, but a deeply inspiring reminder of how science transcends borders." Similar programs are being initiated with the Asia-Pacific Space Cooperation Organization, APSCO, and the African Union Space Program, offering more astronauts from the Global South access to orbital space. Challenges and the road ahead. Despite its success, Tiangong faces hurdles. Language barriers, differing safety protocols, and geopolitical tensions, especially between China and the US, pose real concerns. There are questions about data transparency and the long-term sustainability of the station's funding. Additionally, as the international participation increases, CMSA will have to balance national priorities with the logistical and political demands of being a truly global space platform. Yet, China appears committed. Recent statements from the CMSA hint at expansion plans that include a second space station module cluster, dedicated to international use, and even a joint lunar gateway with developing nations. Conclusion: a heavenly palace for all. China's Tiangong station has achieved more than technological milestones. It has cracked open a door to an inclusive future in space exploration. Where once the domain of orbital science was dominated by a few wealthy nations, Tiangong offers a new blueprint. Shared science, shared access, shared hope. As the sun rises over the Earth and glints off the golden panels of Tiangong, it doesn't just illuminate a Chinese flag. It lights up the aspirations of a world reaching, together, toward the stars.